Greetings and peace. I hope you and yours are doing well today, wherever you might be watching this from. Now, the presentation I would like to do today are the teachings of Maʻat from ancient Egypt in comparison to Masonic teachings and what they imply for its followers. Now, Maʻat is an ancient Egyptian goddess who associated the law of the land, or the rule of the land, of how one have to live in order to live a good life and how to be better and know better in their aspects. So I found a lot of similarities to what Freemasonry teaches to its followers, and I wanted to make a comparison video to bridge the gaps between the different cultures like I have been doing. So I thank you all for joining me, and I hope you enjoy what I have to offer. Here we see Maʻat depicted on the left hand side in an artistic depiction of what the goddess would have looked like. And on the right hand side we have the Nubian tribes in Africa who still symbolize Maʻat in the way that they dress and the way that they act, including the feather of the ostrich on their head, and their life of dignity and respect, and being close to their tribe and helping their local land with food, agriculture, education, growth. So Maʻat is basically the daughter of the sun god Ra and the daughter of a Hathor, and she was associated with Thoth, who was her husband, who was also associated with wisdom, and she herself is known as the one of bringer of cosmic order, truth, and justice. So the aspects of order, justice, truth, and her association with Thoth being the god of wisdom, that all related to the aspect of Freemasonry and ancient Egypt, on how they would have operative masons who would build the temples, and the speculative masons. Like from their aspect, it would be the Egyptian mystery schools, where they would have those that would make the monuments, and inside they would have those that would study in the mystery schools, where they would have 3 stages, or the 357 aspect, where the first stage of the mystery school, it would take you 3 years to complete. The second stage would be 5 years, and the third stage would be 7 years. So I wanted to make this comparison video because a lot of people in the Western world deny any involvement with ancient Egypt. But if you look at all of the monuments and obelisks across the world, and even in the Washington Monument being basically an Egyptian obelisk, and you have the Sphinx, the 2 lines outside of most Masonic buildings, or to the entrance of them. You also have a lot of Egyptian rooms. So there is some kind of spiritual connection that has been passed down, even if there isn't any, how the scholars say they want something documented and they want citations. But when history has been rewritten several times, it's gonna be hard to find those connections. So you have to find them within your own heart and your own understanding. And not just with Maʻat, I've been doing that with most other cultures that I've came across that teach you the same things and teach you the same life lessons and how to be a good person, just like the Masonic path. Because at the end, we're all one united body. We're not just one brotherhood. We're all one mankind, and we need to, show that love to each other in these turbulent times and walk each other home. We owe that love and light to each other. So Maʻat was basically the divine order of the land, and it was her responsibility to make sure that everything was being carried out accordingly, and make sure that everyone was following everything, and even the pharaohs held Maʻat in great regard. One of the main teachings of Maʻat that stood out to me were the texts that were discovered from the Middle Kingdom era, and where she declares that I made every man like his fellow. Maʻat calls the rich to help those that are less fortunate, and not to exploit them in any way, and be charitable, not just to your community but to anyone that that can benefit from your help. And one of her tomb declarations says that I have given bread to the hungry and clothed the naked. I was a husband to the widow and father to the orphan. So there, that connection is being made to the widow's son, the orphan, that being the father to it and being the guiding figure and the guiding force to help that individual on his journey, which I found to be a Masonic comparison. including the feather that she wears on her head of truth and justice, which are still exemplified by the Nubian tribes and many Native American tribes here in the U.S. So, Maʻat also has the seven principles, and it's a system of, morals and values that guided thought and behavior in ancient Kemet, Egypt, and also still used by other tribes in Africa. Now, the system of like Freemasonry, where you have morality veiled in allegory and different lessons to help you become a better man, Maʻat is from that similar perspective. And the first principle being that truth, based in fact with honesty and integrity, where you must always tell the truth no matter what, even if it compromises your own self. So truth is something that will be the greatest wealth that will carry you to the next life. Justice, a state of fairness and lawful judgment. So justice, you make sure that if you see something happening wrong, you make sure you speak out against it, whether it's within your power to do so, or if it's not your power to do so, you still speak out against it. And now with the current times of turbulation, we see that all organizations across America, including Freemasonry, are, suffering their own form of divide where one person's taking this side, one person's taking this side, other person's taking that side, and everyone's kind of falling apart. But if we stick to this principle of Maʻat, of justice, where fairness applies to everybody, no matter what their skin color or background, that applies to us all, and that's what we should act like, with our system of morals and values, and not be torn apart by chaos. So righteousness, a state of consistent good conduct. So making good men better. So if you're a good man, you continue to be better. You continue to be good in your conduct with yourself, with your family, your friends, and others. And that's that principle that applies to you. And it's not about just, okay, I show up at a lodge meeting 1 or 2, 3 times a month, and then that's when I act good. But outside, when I represent myself the most in my community, on social media, at my job, with my friends and families, those principles don't apply to me. So the principles you promise to uphold, according to what Maʻat teaches, is that applies to you 24/7, including how you act with each other on social media. So you always have to be in a state of righteousness, and you have to put your pride and ego down. Sometimes you can be wrong, and you can learn and unlearn, and vice versa. I have done that too, and that's part of your spiritual journey, because you cannot learn in your journey unless you open up your mind. So the fourth principle being reciprocity, which is what goes around comes around. So this being karma. So what you put in, that's what you get out. And in Masonic terms, that's what a lot of people say, is that with your Masonic experience, you get out what you put in. So the same applies to this, and to your other worldly endeavors, is that whatever you're involved in, whatever you're doing, even if it's for yourself, as long as you're putting in the good work, that's what you're going to get back. If you're doing anything negative, that's what you get back. It might take 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, but eventually you have to face those problems, and you can't ignore the problems even if you see something going on and you have the power to say something about it. And that's what we're seeing happening now in today's world and age. And there's a lot of issues that need to be settled, and we hope and pray that it's done with righteousness. So the fifth being balance and equal distribution of weight. So balance being that you have to be fair to all of your dealings in life. You have to be fair to yourself, to your family, to your friends, and any endeavor you're involved with. You can't give somebody more and give somebody less. And we have that in today's society. And that, all the stuff that's been going on against the systematic approaches to think about, different things about how real estate agents act with when certain people come to their neighborhoods and they don't try to sell the homes to them, how the different systems of justice have treated some people better and other people they have not, how the school system have helped excel kids of a certain background better, and they pushed other kids to menial jobs in community college level. So balance is that you have to be equal to everybody. And if you don't, then that's when that karma from the previous principle of Maat will come and straighten things out for you. Where if you ignore it for, let's say, 100 years, 300 years, 400 years, eventually that hammer will come fall down on you, where everything will have to get balanced in society. 6 being order, the correct sequence of thoughts and actions. So if you think good, you know good, and you do good, then that's when you have a prosperous society. But if everything is about division, or he said, she said, I'm right, you're right, then that kind of ruins the aspect of human unity, because Maat, even with what the pharaohs taught, is that the law applied equally to all the subjects of Egypt. So, the thing is that you have good and bad in all races, religions, and groups in the world, and you can't generalize the entire population based on the actions of a few. If I see somebody from a certain faith that is doing something wrong, and I look at what their scripture teaches, their scripture doesn't tell them to do what they were doing. That's human action. That's not whatever background that they come from. So we have to realize and treat each other based on actions, not appearances or backgrounds. And that's what order is saying. We have to treat everybody equally and make sure that your thoughts and actions are aligned with who you say that you are. If you're truly about being a good person and making a difference in the world and making a difference for your family and friends, then that should match your actions, because in order for you to attract someone, they have to look at your actions, and that's what will be the teaching moment for them. So the 7th principle being harmony, one accord, a pleasing arrangement. So harmony, everyone has to be one, because we all come from that same divine source, and that's what we're all going to get back to. Even from myself, the Sufi point of view, where we believe that mineral goes to a plant, plant goes to an animal, animal goes to man, man goes to angel, and then angel goes back to God. So to God we belong, and to him we shall return. So all of that is basically, that aspect between good and evil. You have to find that harmony. And just like the black and white tiles of Freemasonry, where in life you'll have good moments, you'll have bad moments, you'll have bad moments, you'll have good moments, but in all of those moments, you got to know who you are, what you stand for, and what is that your purpose carries you towards. And that's what will always help you be unshakable in your convictions. Here we see Maat depicted stretching her wings, and her wings basically were protecting Egypt from all the chaos and disorder and those who wanted to do evil. So the opposite of Maat, which is order, is Isfet, which is disorder. So that's that concept of God and the devil, where you have one divine force that's there to help you and assist you, but it won't interfere in your free will. You have to ask them to help you, and they will help you. And then you have Isfet, which interferes with the human evolution, because chaos and disorder hates humanity. And that's the purpose of those forces. So they will interfere with your free will and make you distracted from who you are. And throughout the ages, when these two forces existed, however they're depicted in different religions and philosophies, it's always about finding that balance. And that's what Maat is teaching us, is that when we go through that hallway and it's time for our hearts to get weighed, it has to be lighter than a feather, because it's Maat who will be there when that time happens. And it's about, in our actions, not just as men and women, but no matter what affiliations or titles you hold in society, or whatever organizations you are a part of, majority of them are based on good actions about improving the self and improving the community, improving the world. So your heart has to be lighter than a feather. So that's why they always say Masonically to always travel light. So if you help somebody, you help them and don't think about it again. But if you're going to help somebody and tell 20 people about it and then make the person feel bad about it, then that kind of ruins the good deed and makes your heart heavier. So it's the concept of Maat always teaches us is that travel light always in your life, because you never know when it might come to an end. Because once it does come to an end, then we must be held accountable for our actions in this life, whether verbally or physically or mentally or spiritually. Here are the 42 principles of Maat. And what was fascinating to me is that these principles and way of life and what they're asking of their subjects and those that followed it to become good and to become better. It existed before any organized religion or any fraternal group or any philosophy at that time. So, at most what we see in history kind of only gives credit to a certain few, where if you look at the history, it tells you that, okay, everything was founded by the Greeks and the Romans. But you have to look at history, that how it's been revised to fit a certain agenda. Now, I have nothing against those two, but you have to be fair because you have to be able to learn from all aspects. You can't just say that everything comes from here and only accept findings that come from there and not be able to learn from other cultures and religions that were always teaching those same things as well. Because we have to be whole. That's one of the principles of Maʻat. Eastern and Western teachings have to be whole. So, let's get started. Let's go over the 42 principles of Maʻat. So first is, I will not do wrong. So I will never hurt anybody intentionally or unintentionally. I will always make sure that I love and respect all those that come before me for aid, because even as Masons, everyone has claim upon your kind offices. 2. I will not steal. 3. I will not act with violence. I will not kill. And that's why even in the lodge, you're not supposed to bring anything that can hurt somebody. So, it's everything is, your whole life is supposed to be an act of harmony, where, the Mason cheerfully lives under the government in which he lives under. Same what Maʻat demands is that you have to be good citizens of wherever your residence is, and to be good stewards of the society where others can count on you when they need you. I will not be unjust. I will not cause pain. I will not waste food. So to be fair and to be just in all of your dealings with others. I will not lie. I will not desecrate holy places. I will not speak evil. So just like what Manly Palmer Hall tells us, is that the true Mason bows before every altar because he sees the beauty and the light and the charity between all faiths and cultures and religions and ways of life that exist out there. Because, for the one great big work that everyone is striving towards, and cannot exist in a narrow mind. So he has to accept all of those principles in their life. You will not speak evil. You will not abuse your sexuality. You will not cause the shedding of tears. Meaning, don't bring any emotional or unjust hurt towards anybody. And we see that even on Facebook, right? Where you can have somebody that calls you brother, but then they'll go online and post anything derogatory towards another person's way of thought, philosophy, race, or religion. So then you're causing, you're shedding the tears, because that's not fair. That's not that promise that you made before the divine, that all men are made equal. So we got to make sure that we're not biased and not in our echo chambers of understandings, where even like in different groups, if the subject that's been posted approves your bias, then you will approve it. But if not, then you will never approve that person, their post or whatever have you. So you got to get out of that echo chamber and not cause any hurt to anybody. If anybody says anything hurtful to you, you be the better person. Either try to make them understand or walk away. But if you go back and forth, then there's no difference between you and that person. So you have to be fair and just in your dealings, and not make sure you don't bring any sorrow to anybody or regret. I will not sow seeds of regret. I will not be an aggressor. I will not act guileful. I will not lay waste the plowed land. I will not bear false witness. I will not speak against any person. I will not be wrathful and angry. I will not lay with a man's wife. I will not lay with a woman's husband. I will not pollute myself. I will not cause terror. I will not pollute the earth. I will not speak in anger. I will not turn from the words of truth. I will not utter curses. I will not initiate a quarrel. I will not be excitable or contentious. So see that? So from what I covered, from all the way down, all the way from the shedding of tears, all the way down to be excitable or contentious. So this is basically saying that, circumscribe your desires and live your life within due bounds. Do not be excitable or contentious, where your passions get the best of you and you end up hurting somebody or speaking in anger and you utter curses or you cause terror. Or if I go to the local park, it's people throwing trash all over the place. They're being wrathful and angry and polluting the earth and bearing false witness against each other. He said, she said, I'm right, you're right. I have to prove myself right so I can sleep easy at night. I don't care, helping you grow in your journey. So all these things are hurtful. Even if this was said thousands of years ago, before any religion or any organized philosophy or social group, you have to realize that these teachings are needed today more than ever. And they're true. Which even in, as time went on, other faiths that came about and other philosophies that came about, they exemplified these same values. So I will not be prejudiced. So you cannot be racist. You have to be able to love and respect everyone and not be in your own way of life thinking that, the whataboutism that many people get into. Hey, what about this? What about that? But hey, you know what? Let's just try to work together. And if you go outside, in most American neighborhoods, you'll have people of all races and backgrounds living together peacefully. They work together, their kids go to school together. And, in the summertime, everyone's hanging out at the park. So we shouldn't have that prejudice because, we're all part of that human family. And now we're being forced to address these issues because we ignored it for so long. I will not be an eavesdropper. I will not speak over much. I will not act against my ancestors. I will not waste water. I will not do evil. I will not be arrogant. The best one, because pride and arrogance is sometimes our downfall. And we have to make sure that those that are acting in that manner and are not giving other people the chance to prove themselves, we have to make sure that we correct their errors and help them become better. So you have a lot of those that get in high positions, or they get fancy titles, or they had some kind of spectacular experience. So when somebody else tries to prove something to them, they think, oh, he's not even worth my time. I'm not even going to give him any credence or confirmation. So instead of meeting on the level, you already put yourself above him, and that's breaking one of the laws. So you have to make sure that you treat everyone equally. No one is above you. No one is beneath you. And that's what we're taught in Sufism also, where the sheikh will always tell you that, the beggar is better than me. And I can ask the sheikh, why do you say that? And he said, because, the divine power that's watching over all of us can overnight put me in his position and put him in my position. So never look down upon anyone, because, the Most High Creator can turn saints into sinners and sinners into saints. So we got to make sure that we're not arrogant and we're not doing evil and we're not acting against anything that takes us away from that path of enlightenment. I will not blaspheme the one Most High. I will not commit fraud. I will not defraud temple offerings. I will not plunder the dead. I will not mistreat children. I will not mistreat animals. So this is basically giving you the whole menu of life, which even applies to the modern day more than ever. I mean, I would say even with our technology and all the advancements we have, we're still very backwards people. And that's why everyone's hearts are spiritually diseased at the moment. And when the heart of the collective is spiritually diseased, that's when you have worries, anxieties, disorders. Everyone's fearful of each other. Relationships are not working out. Things are falling apart. Everyone's turning on each other. So we got to be able to realize that, okay, in order for a people's destiny to change, they have to collectively change themselves. Just like how it says in all religions and philosophies that God only helps you unless you help yourself. So everyone has to collectively start cleaning themselves out internally. And once you clean yourself out internally, then that internal frequency of the inner temple will manifest out into the external world. And if enough people do that collectively, that's when you'll have real change. And at that point, it doesn't matter who's in charge and who's the decision maker, because then the people have collectively decided their destiny by their thoughts. So, the people have to come together and address these issues and find the middle ground with other people, even if they don't agree with them, at least for the sake of humanity. and for that sake of love for each other and for the survival of our species and carrying our teachings and love forward to the future, especially in an age of AI where uh, there have been instances where even when you're thinking something and you haven't mentioned it to anybody or you haven't conversated with anybody and you're scrolling through social media or YouTube, those ads pop up for what you were thinking about. So, it's getting kind of scary that we're losing our humanity day by day on top of the division that's like the icing on the cake. So I believe we must turn the tide around, with the principles of Maʻat and the principles and teachings of Maʻat. We need to apply these teachings, according to the Sufi path, Masonic path, whatever path you follow. This is universal to all of it. And we must come together as a people and not be divided for the sake of the future of our people and humanity and the children and whatever carries you forward, because we inherit those values and love from those who fought for it, and if we don't pass that forward, then we're doing a big injustice to them. So let's think about it and act upon it. One of the main principles of Maʻat also is the unity between a man and a woman. So a woman's highest calling is to lead a man to his soul, unite him with source. Her lowest calling is to seduce, separating man from his soul and leave him aimlessly wandering. A man's highest calling is to protect woman, so she is free to walk the earth unharmed. Man's lowest calling is to ambush and force his way into the life of a woman. So we see the Ankh here, and the Ankh is basically the male organ connected with the female organ, making one whole being. So many occult traditions from that time up until now teach you that aspect of that male and female energy becoming one, where some even demonstrate that physically. So this is basically teaching you that, a man's responsibility, a man that's a good man, a Mason, the son of Maʻat, or a my son, Mason, his job is to basically be the protector of the family and the giver of the community. That's why even, in the modern Masonic terms, you have the ladies' nights where they tell you to honor your ladies and bring your ladies to the events, and other forms of being a good, honorable family man, and including your loved ones and your other halves in all of your activities and beings of your life. So that's what it is. The modern society has destroyed that relationship between the man and the woman with many different movements and agendas that are out there, but we must realize that we must become one again, because we cannot exist without each other, and it's our love for each other that will help us become one. And just like in the Matrix, at the end of the first Matrix, where Neo, who gets killed, he's awoken by Trinity, who shares her life force energy with him, and they both become one, and then he awakens himself. Same thing, at the second one, where he does the same with her. So it's a give and take, and it's about becoming one with those energies, not just with the opposite sex, but inside yourself, where you harmonize those male and feminine aspects of yourself to become one and to become better and to become stronger. That's why even in many faiths, including Islam, with what I follow, a man's faith is not complete until he marries a woman. A woman's faith is not complete until she marries a man, and together they make that one whole united body. And same, it's described in all traditions and philosophies throughout time, about the two becoming one and connecting to that divine source energy. So that's, in order to become a better man, you must find that other half to make you whole. Here we see one of the statues of Lady Justice that is often outside of U.S. courts or other courts around the world. And it's basically the blindfolded goddess of truth and justice holding the scales of heart and the feather to make sure that your heart is lighter than a feather, and to ensure order, justice, and cosmic order. Hence why they're always outside of the courtrooms. Now, in the European traditions, they have goddesses too in Greeks and Roman tradition, but originally it comes from Egypt, the concept of Maʻat from the Nubian traditions. So it's something that has been followed. I mean, ancient Egyptian traditions, if you really look at it, and even in the modern architectures of a lot of things that you see, the pyramids harness energy. And if you go to the city of Philadelphia, where I'm from, you'll see many of the buildings in the pyramid shape because they harness energy. You see the statue of Maʻat outside of courtrooms to have justice. So those traditions have basically passed on. You go to a lot of the Masonic buildings, there'll be sphinxes outside, and they'll have Egyptian rooms and symbolisms and obelisks like Washington's monument. So there's a lot of relativity, and it's anyone with common sense can make those connections. And a lot of people don't want to admit to it, but it's not about saying that, okay, Masonry 100% comes from Egypt. It's about, hey, there's that teachings that we can apply to from here, from here, from here. Because if you watched all of my videos that I made, the compare and contrast of different religions and philosophies that I made with Masonry, you can see that it's all the same thing. Everything has one underlying truth. It's all the same exact thing: to be good, to serve the divine, be good to your family, be good to each other, and then you have a short time on this earth, and just do the best that you can and enjoy yourself and be happy always. I covered that in Sufism and other traditions that I covered. It's all the same. So Freemasonry, what we know as modern Freemasonry, it has taken a little bit from each philosophy and faith and made it one whole body. Just like how we're supposed to be united in one global body in our love and teachings for each other. So that's my, hope and understanding, that everyone that watches my work watches it with an open mind, knowing that, hey, I can take something from Kabbalah, I can take something from ancient Egypt, I can take something from Sufism, I can take something from Gnosticism. And you take a little bit from each and apply that to yourself. That if that makes you better, then that's more power to you. But my job is to teach those that are in their echo chambers that everything comes from this side and everyone else is wrong. So we got to learn to get past that in order to be a part of that cosmic order and of divine justice and love and freedom and truth for all beings, no matter who they are and what they believe. Here we see Maʻat and Anubis at the twin halls when one soul passes away. This is one of the halls of judgment that you must walk through, and that this is where your heart gets weighed, the feather and the heart. And if it's lighter than a feather, then you make it onto the next realm, and if not, then you get demoted to lower realms. Just like how in all philosophies and paths in life, we often see that, hey, if you resonated with God or divine force or whatever helped you connect to that creator, you move on to the next realm. But if not, then you either get stuck here, you reincarnate, or you go back to lower realms, lower than this, until you work your way back up again. So it's basically telling us to not take our life as a joke and not to waste our time, because our time is very precious. Just like how a Mason would say that, each day that's given to me is a blessing. With any other philosophy that you see out there, our time is precious, and our time is the most valuable currency that we have, because it's our time and our effort and our love for each other and our good actions and our good thoughts and our good behaviors which will ultimately save us in the end. It won't be our titles or having any acronyms or numbers next to your name, fancy degrees or suburban homes or big bank accounts or fancy cars. You're going to leave all that behind. That's all an illusion in this dreamlike world that we're in. The real reality is when you wake up, and then they're going to be waiting there for you to judge you, to see did you pass the test or you didn't. So as I see, I get really hurt at what I've been seeing recently in the world, especially in the U.S. And I tell people that, hey, we can't let the agents of chaos divide us. And the agents of chaos, they exist in all races, religions, and groups in the world. Just like the black and white tile, you have good and bad in life, you have good and bad in all those things too. You have to judge someone by their actions and how they are, not by, what they look like. So we got to get to that point where we get out of those echo chambers and those biases and be able to learn and unlearn and learn again in that order, because that's the only way that we're going to learn and grow in our journeys spiritually. Because if we make it to this point, then all of our, worldly wealth and status will be for nothing. It's your thoughts and actions which will ultimately save you in the end, and having your heart lighter as a feather. And one who travels light is the one that's going to ascend to the next level. Thank you all for watching. I hope you were able to learn something from the teachings of Maʻat, a little bit of the ancient Egyptian system and how that applies to Freemasonry, and also how its universal principles apply to all the races and religions of the world with their respective spiritual paths and teachings. It's about human unity, and it's not about, making anyone feel off or under. It's about finding that common ground and building the bridges. And it's my responsibility because I see no one else doing it. So as a Mason, it's, my job as a bridge builder to leave a better world behind than what I found it to be. So I appreciate all of your love and support. And I pray everything goes well for you and your families for the rest of the summer and beyond. So if you have any questions or comments, please email me at salmonshake911@gmail.com. All images and thumbnails that were used for this presentation were retrieved from public domain searches and are the property of their respective owners. I'm just using it for the purpose of fair use under the copyright laws of fair use education purpose. And my videos are always non-profit and for the purpose of awareness and education and not monetized. So it's all about just spreading awareness and love. So thank you again, and wish you and yours all the peace and happiness in the world. All rights reserved.